This door is open to you. Come and let's be silent. Come and share a hug. Come, let's pray together. Come, love and be loved. From the blissed out to the turned out, from the pampered to the abused, this door is open to you. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. The God in us recognizes the God in you. The God in you. Whether you're black or white or gay or straight, Christian, Buddhist or Jew, this door is open to you.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Mary Ann Cordova Brene, aka Reverend Mary. And Reverend Tracy is taking the weekend off, so I am here to take her place for the weekend. So welcome to Claremont Center for Spiritual Living, which is part of the International Centers for Spiritual Living, where our vision is a world that works for everyone. So, and welcome to you online as well. Playing with us this week is our practitioner, Patty Powers, and the ever-present, remarkable Jeff. And this week we have the wonderful Janelle with us, who always gives us really something to think about in her music. So let us begin. I'm looking for her. We will start today with an intention of transparency and authenticity. So if we just get settled, letting go of the morning, breathing in, coming to that place of peace and quiet, that place within.
So in this place within, we know that there is peace. We know that there's joy. And we know that that is our connection to God, to each other. And in this connection, we know that this is a glorious day. But this is a day where we know peace and love. We know that our talk today, our time together today, is blessed. We know that the message today and the music today hold messages for each and every one of us. And we are grateful just to be here. So we let it be, let it go, and say together, and so it is. Good morning. My reading today is from The Art of Life by Ernest Holmes. The science of mind is merely one of the tools we use in giving expression to the life principle. Our greatest satisfaction lies not in the fact that we can use this principle, but in the realization that such a power exists and that we are one with it. If we carry a light into a darkened room, the darkness is dissipated without any effort on our part. So it is in the experience of one who has a deep consciousness of life. Something invisible but all-penetrating will flow through his every look and gesture. People will feel better sitting in his presence. Healings will take place automatically. The divine spirit is not a mythical, abstract being floating somewhere above the earth. God is a divine presence revealing himself to everyone who believes. Where God is recognized, there is life. Where the presence of God is realized, there is action. Where the goodness of God is acknowledged, there is peace. We must come to understand what faith and prayer really are, and how it is that God works through each of us. We must no longer believe that God is a God only of some one race or creed, for God is the God of all life, of everyone's life, of everything that lives. God is the intelligence, the beauty, the law and order, and the animating principle in and through everything. Thank you. Now welcome to know.
Good morning. How are you? I wasn't quite ready for that. I was just waiting. Just like, oh, it's me. So I have a bunch of teenagers that live at my house right now I'm taking care of. And this song is for them this week because they kept me up really late a couple nights ago. So you'll see why. There is no room for hate in this house. There is no room, no room, no room. 'Cause the landlord, he is the architect of peace. I said the landlord, he is the architect of peace. And I don't understand what confusion is all about. 'Cause when I follow his lead, my soul is released. There is no room. There is no room. There is no room for hate in these eyes. They are the window to my soul that color my life. There is no room for hating myself. 'Cause when it goes down that deep, my body's unwell. There is no room. There is no room. There is no room for hate on my tongue. Not in my walk or my talk or my I ravel undone. There is no room for hate of any kind. 'Cause when it's present, the whole world goes blind. the whole world goes blind. The whole world goes blind. There's no room for love if hate is on my lips. And there's no room for joy if sad is all I see. And there's no room for peace if war lives in my heart. And there's no room for patience if I cannot endure. And there's no room for kindness if I can't be kind to me. And there's no room for goodness if I'm locked in history. 'Cause faith doesn't doubt and gentleness understands. And self-control doesn't raise its hand. There is no room for hate in this house. There is no room, no room, no room, no room. There is no room. There is no room. There is no room.
Wow. Huh. Wake up. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you, Janelle. So you've heard the expression, it's good to be the king, right? Or it's good to be the queen. But is it? Is it good to be the king? Well, you go, well, yeah. Then I get a bunch of people running around doing exactly what I want them to do. And another bunch of people kind of protecting me, making sure that my life is easy and pleasant. So it sounds pretty good. Except, being the king or the queen can also be pretty lonely. It can be pretty lonely at the top there because you can't really be open about what's going on. Kings and queens are also people. And they also make the mistake, but they can't let anybody know that there's any weakness or any errors. So they can't really share what's going on inside. So it gets pretty lonely. When I was a kid, we played a game called King of the Mountain. And if you've never played that, it's you either get a mound, a hill, or a bed will work too. And you stand on top of the bed, and then all the other kids try to dethrone you. And they become the king of the mountain. So the thing is, you never really get to relax being the king, because if you do, you're going to get dethroned very quickly. So you're always on alert. You're always on guard. You're always checking, looking over your shoulder around, and you're always prepared. So it's kind of tough being there. You never get to relax. It's lonely. So on the other hand, what about being the host of a party? Now, the host of the party, you have lots of friends, right? And all your friends come over. And you have, great conversation. But when you invite people into your home, it's also a little risky, isn't it? Maybe everything isn't just perfect. Maybe I missed a spot on the floor with the mop. Maybe I forgot to dust. Maybe, there's too much clutter over here. Maybe they don't like the music. Maybe they don't like the food. Maybe. So there's a little risk in inviting people in. That's what we call vulnerability. And the theme for this month from Centers for Spiritual Living is vulnerability. Now, when I say vulnerability, do you kind of cringe, or do you melt? We think of that word as being a negative word, that I'm vulnerable, I'm open. Yeah, we could. Mics are seeming different. So we kind of have a tough time, but Brene Brown, who has spent, years talking about vulnerability and shame and those kind of things, says that vulnerability is neither a good thing or a bad thing. She says to be vulnerable is to explore the depths of ourselves and others, even when we are unsure of what we might uncover. It's stepping out, whether literally or metaphorically, often in the face of uncertainty and fear, for the purpose of fostering a fuller expression of ourselves. So vulnerability does have risk, and it does have rewards, great rewards. And as we know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You've heard that expression. And with a certain amount of risk, there are great rewards. The old story, if you take your money and you put it under the pillow, it never grows. If you take yourself and put it under a pillow, put yourself in a closet under the bushel, hide it under a bushel, you never get that full expression, that full connection. And in Noble Purpose, Barry Heerman tells us that the first step to knowing our purpose in life is that feeling of belonging, that everybody needs to feel like they belong somewhere and in that group. And so our tendency in this search for belonging is, rather than to take risks, to try to look for places with little risk, find people that are just like us and think like us, and sort of close that off. But the real richness in the belonging to this planet, to this universe, to this divine expression that it's all around it, requires us stepping out and engaging with the universe. So we're looking at a vulnerability that creates a greater belonging rather than a separateness. We've heard the term the otherness, so, the safest way to belong is, there's my group and there's that group. They're not like us. And they say the best way, in some of the books on, war strategies, they say the best way to create unity is to create an enemy. But we know better than that here in Science of Mind, right? We know that that's not the greater unity that we want to create. So there's a story in the Four Pivots, a book by Sean Ginwright. It's in the first section on changing our relationships from transactional to transformative. He gives us a story. Now, Sean is a lecturer, and he's created this retreat. And he is an African-American man, and so he has this retreat, and everybody is, pretty homogeneous in this retreat. And so they're talking about vulnerability and whatever, but there's a lot of kind of othering going on that he's talking about. And so he's trying to tell people about how to be more inclusive with other people. And all of a sudden, you know, he opens it to questions and he sees all these hands shoot up, because you can see that, you know, he says you can see that people are going to go, yeah, but those guys. And so all these hands shoot up. And there's one person who raises his hand, and for some reason, that's the one he calls on first. He's just intuitively brought to that person. And so he writes, the man he called on, his name is Stephen. Stephen, an African-American brother in his mid-40s who had been quiet during the retreat, raised his hand. He wore a blue hat with embroidered letters, CAL, and for some reason I called on him first. He paused with a bit of trepidation, and I expected him to push back in disagreement. He said, I've been sitting here listening to you explain othering and how we all at times other groups in our work. I also heard folks share groups of people that they are most unlike and would hate to spend any time with. It's hard to sit here and listen to what I'm hearing from folks. Like people say that they couldn't spend a week with Republicans or evangelical Christians or Trump supporters. He paused, and the room was silent because we could feel he was holding something heavy he wanted to share. Well, this is hard to say to this group, but I'm a registered Republican. I'm an evangelical Christian, and I'm a Trump supporter. He exhaled as if he had breathed out 20 pounds of concrete that landed on the floor directly in the center of the room for everyone to see. The group was shocked at what he had shared, and so was I. I've been feeling like I don't belong at this retreat because of some of the comments I've heard. And he paused. And as he composed himself, nearly everyone's eyebrows were raised with confusion and disdain on their face. Folks' hands shot up in eager to respond to what he had just shared. But he continued. I came to this retreat because I needed to be with people who were learning how to heal. You see, I lost my brother a couple weeks ago, and it's so hard. I haven't even buried him yet. He looked at us. His eyes were wet, and he said, I need to heal too. I haven't had the courage to even bury him. His soul was open, and it spilled out all over us. Almost immediately, everyone's raised hand went down, as if in a wave of unanticipated compassion swept over the room. Strangers who hadn't connected with Stephen gently placed their hands on his back and offered their support. We could see him. Stephen's vulnerability transformed our group, not because it was a big kumbaya moment, quite the contrary. His comments unleashed conversations among people in the group who felt the same way he did at times. That story is about the humanity that connects us all. That if we look a little deeper, the other is not so other. So vulnerability is not dumping our emotions inappropriately all over everybody else. It's also not being the doormat with no boundaries. What it is an openness and a transparency that nurtures the authenticity in ourselves and others. Right? It's what we need to do in order to find connection. and belonging with the whole human race, with others, understanding that at the bottom of it, at the essence of who we are, there is that commonality. There are those vulnerabilities, those emotions. What vulnerability is courage. It's courage to make that conscious decision to be honest and transparent in a loving and nurturing way. A few months ago, or maybe only about a month ago, at our Wednesday night gateway, we had a couple of women that came and presented restorative practice circle. And as we sat there in a circle, it was really simple. She started out with a question of, what's your favorite candy? And then went on to, what have you not yet experienced in the center that you would like to? And as each person in the circle answered the questions uninterrupted, you started to see minds and hearts open. People started saying, yeah, that's my favorite candy too. Yeah, I like that one too. And yeah, I'd like to experience that too. And maybe I could make that happen. Do you want to get together with me and we can make this happen? So connections started forming in ways that we did not anticipate when we first sat down. So being vulnerable requires telling our story and really listening to other people's story. It's something that often, I know myself, I need to learn as I get older, because I spend a good part of my life being king of the mountain and learning not to be so vulnerable in order to protect myself. And yes, sometimes we have to do that growing up, but it gets us to a place as adults where we can be more vulnerable because we know who we are, right? We know that essence within. We know we walk with Spirit, and Spirit will walk with us always, that is our source. And the more comfortable we are with ourselves, the more honest we are with ourselves, the more comfortable we can be in being vulnerable with others. We don't have to fear what someone else may say when we know the truth about ourselves. So the first place we start in being vulnerable is with ourselves and being honest with ourselves. But it takes listening. It takes telling our stories and accepting our own humanity within ourselves. You know, sometimes we don't like to admit, even to ourselves, those judgments about ourselves, those mistakes that we have made. I know that, you know, if you take even little things, but it finds connection. I know that my mom and I used to be business partners for a while, and we didn't start till I was about 40. And up to that point, I just thought my mother was perfect. She walked on water. She had the golden touch. Everything was perfect. Well, one day she came into work late, and instead of getting off in Covina, she got off at Baseline at Grand Avenue. She got off at Baseline because she just missed her exit. And then she got back on and went the wrong way, and she went clear out to Fontana. That day, my mother became a person that I could be a friend of. And we became good friends because she was no longer on the pedestal. She was just like me, someone who makes mistakes. My own mistakes, I remember Kwanzaa. I forgot to put the water in the coffee pot. Plugged it in, put the coffee in, plugged it in, the whole thing. We did the whole Kwanzaa celebration. At the end of the Kwanzaa celebration, we had no coffee because I forgot to put the water in. I also, soon after that, forgot to put the top on the blender when I was making margaritas. Reverend Lee, our assistant minister at the time, just laughed, and she goes, you know what? That's what I love about you, is that you do things like this. You're human. And it makes it so much easier to relate. So as we allow ourselves to accept our own humanity without judgment and are able to allow others to see it, there's that connection. I had a bookkeeper at the time, and I would do the reconciliations at the end of the month. And of course, when you do a reconciliation, you see all the mistakes that you've made throughout the month. And golly, there always are, because we're humans, right? We make mistakes. But every time she would try to say, no, I didn't make that mistake, or it was because of this, or so-and-so did this, or this happened. And don't worry about it. We make mistakes. And she would try to hide these mistakes, which made it worse, because when you start getting in QuickBooks and try to hide the mistake you make, you often make it worse. Yeah. So there's examples there of, hiding our mistakes versus, letting them out, being vulnerable. I know that when I get excited, sometimes in a conversation, I can get really chatty. And I can start really talking fast, and I can do half sentences and move to another sentence and go on. And it's hard to get a word in edgewise. I know that. I do that. Well, a friend the other day said, stop. I have something to say. And I could have shrunk in embarrassment and closed myself down out of embarrassment and not heard what he really had to say. Or just say, oops, sorry. What is it that you would like to say? That's being open, being vulnerable, accepting that we make mistakes, and moving forward. Having the courage to be transparent and honest with ourselves gives us that strength and that power. The examples I've given are little things, but there are bigger things that in our lives that we don't really want anybody to know. And how often do we say, boy, if somebody knew this about me, they wouldn't like me, or they wouldn't respect me anymore if they knew this. Well, the honest truth about that is they probably would love you more because they probably do the same thing or have the same feelings, and then they can open up and share them with you. The difference we are all part of this human race. And we all have different stories. And what I've learned in the last few years, a lot of it coming from taking inclusion workshops and stuff, is that our stories matter. They matter. And it's important to listen to them, because it brings, just like with that story about Stephen, him losing his brother, we can all put ourselves in that position. We can all recognize that feeling. That story really brought out his humanity, and it brought out the humanity in the entire room. But if they hadn't listened, if they had cut him off, if he didn't get to finish his story, there would have been no openness. So in the 4 Pivots, that same book, and it's a great book, and I think we may do a book study about it pretty soon, because it's a great book. In that section again on transactional relationships changing to transformative relationships, Ginwright tells us that our deeper values in us, that We can only understand and therefore transform our deeper values and assumptions when we lean into vulnerability, share our stories, listen, and learn from one another. So today is Palm Sunday, right? It is the Christian celebration of when Jesus walked into Jerusalem and they laid all the palms down in front of, he was on a donkey, and they put all the palms down so that the dust wouldn't rise and get his feet dirty or anything. And it was a custom to do for royalty. So on this Sunday, Jesus was treated as royalty. This Sunday is also the beginning of Holy Week. And we know what happens in Holy Week. There's betrayal, there's torture, there's humiliation. Jesus is stripped and tortured and hung on a cross, exposed to everyone. So we went from being royalty to being the most open, vulnerable, lowliest position, all in this short amount of time. And then Easter, we say he's risen from the tomb. He transcends both the royalty and the vulnerability because it's put together in a transcendent way. It honors both the royalty and the vulnerability. And if he hadn't been vulnerable, if he hadn't gone through all that, if he hadn't been on a cross, there could be no Easter. There could be no transcending. So if we don't take that risk, if we're not vulnerable, we don't get to transform either. We just stay the same. So, again in our book, the Four Pivots, Ginwright also says, well, okay, let's get real. What about political vulnerability? What about our institutions? What about this government, that we live in? Is it transformative? Is it transparent? Is it honest? And he says, well, golly, folks, in order for our institutions and our government to be transparent and honest, we have to enter it ourselves with transparency and honesty. Because they're just made up of people, right? And it has to start with people, the honesty and transparency. Because these institutions, and whether they're private or governmental, they're just made up of people. So we all need to be transparent and honest. So the power in being vulnerable, and there is a lot of power in being vulnerable because you have nothing left to hide. Nobody, has anything on you, right? There's nothing to hide. So there's a power in that. And the power first comes from being vulnerable with yourself because you're not trying to hide anything from yourself. And then allowing yourself to be vulnerable with others. So with that, I would just say our charge today is to be first honest and authentic and transparent with ourselves, releasing the judgment, because we've all done things we're not happy about, we're not proud of. We all have situations that we would rather not have anybody know, but the truth is they probably do know because they've lived it. So we start with ourselves, and then we do the others. We take time to listen to the stories of others without that judgment. We act with compassion because everybody is just doing the best they can with what they got to work with, right? No matter how they're acting, what their beliefs are, they're just working with what they've got to work with. So for this week, this Holy Week, take some time to listen to others, to nurture yourself, and to let go of those judgments. I honor you. Oh, as Janelle is coming up, let's do a prayer around that as she's getting herself ready. Yeah. As we drop down into that open heart, that heart that knows joy and knows pain, that heart that feels courage and sometimes shame. We recognize that this heart of ours is at the essence God, Spirit. There is one mind, there is one heart. That heart is God's heart. That heart is our heart. My heart, your heart, our heart. And we know we bring that courage from that essence of who we are. That is, God is our source. God is our source of courage, of belief in ourselves, of love for ourselves, and love for humanity. So we invite this courage in that we might express greater and we might see more of others, allowing them to express in a greater way, in a deeper way. We speak our word of connection and belonging to ourselves and to this amazing world around us. We are grateful. We are so grateful that we have this knowledge, this source, this unconditional love, always, always supporting us. This is the truth, and so it is.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Just reminds me that everything is practice. Whether we're practicing being patient or loving or walking or a new skill, it doesn't really matter. We're humans and everything is practice. Physicians have a practice. Lawyers have a practice because they know that they have to continue practicing to get better and better. And if they know it and they're very educated, then those of us that maybe aren't as educated should know that we're practicing. And this song, I was having my students practice songwriting, and I gave them 15 minutes to write a song. And I had the timer going, and I thought, well, then I should write one too, because I'm doing nothing while they're doing that. So I wrote this song about the first thing that I saw, and I saw a bottle of water. So I started writing about water, and I had in my head these women in Africa who are carrying these big jugs, and they have to travel for miles and miles to get to water. And so I was writing about that, and I performed it for a group that was not religious at all, and a woman leaned next to her partner and said, "I think she's in the wrong room." And I was writing about water, not about God or anything. I was writing about water, but she didn't know that. She took from my words that I was writing about some religious thing. So anyway, my point to that is that I asked other people what this song was about, and people said love, God, all different kinds of things, but not actually what it was about. My son got the closest, and he said ocean. So, which is water. So this morning I walk. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot, but I walk, and I was on my walk, and I was thinking about what I should do today. And I thought about love, because some people think this song is about love, and it could very well be. But we have, in this country, we have water pumped into our homes, right? We don't have to worry about it. We just go turn it on, and there it is, right? Why don't we have love pumped into the homes? Is there a way to pump that love in? And so many don't have love in their homes. And how is there a way that we can do that? That's what came to me. And I thought the only way that we can do that on a regular basis is to practice pumping love into everyone that we see, everyone that we come in contact with. And it's not easy, like I was talking about with the teenagers. It's not always easy pumping that love in when someone's yelling at you or when they're doing something that is maybe harmful to you. But again, it's all practice. So hard to get. Sorry for my long explanation. You flow through me, you quench my thirst, you clean me up when I'm at my worst. I swim in you, you ease my pain. You're the biggest part of me that I can't explain. And there is nothing like you on this planet and beyond. You're the one I run to. Every day you are the bond that connects to those I know and those I've never met. And you're vitally important, but for some, so hard to get, so hard to get. I can't live without you, but don't give you all you do. I take you for granted like worn-in shoes. I'm quickly losing step. I need to turn around to focus on you before I lose the ground. 'Cause there is nothing like you on this planet and beyond. You're the one I come to. Every day you are the bond that connects to those I know and those I never met. And you're vitally important, but for some, so hard to get, so hard to get. You don't complain, you just keep giving. I hear the train calling us, calling us. You don't complain, you just keep giving. But I hear the train calling us, calling. There is nothing like you on this planet. You're the one I run to on this planet. There is nothing like you on this planet. a song. You're vitally important, but for some, so hard to get. So hard to get. So hard to get.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's do our affirmation for today. It's in your bulletin. And those of you online can follow with us. I'll say it once and then we'll all say it together. I choose to courageously and authentically engage in this thing called life. Courageously and authentically engage in this thing called life. And so it is. And so it is. Okay, so our invitations. Well, before we do the invitations, let's do our love offering. Okay. You may have it in your hand, and if not, the baskets are still on the way out. But let's take it and hold it next to our heart. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am prosperous now. And we know prosperity is not just financial, it's life. You know, life is abundant. Okay. So our invitations. We do have breathing meditation at 12 o'clock, so you'll still have time to get some coffee and some cookies in the lobby, and then join Ingrid over in the room down the stairs at that end for a 20-minute, roughly, breathing meditation. Flowers this morning are provided by Shelley Kepler. Thank you, Shelley. And you too can provide flowers any Sunday, particularly if you have an occasion too, because you provide the flowers, you pay through the church the florist to bring the flowers here, and then you get to take them home and give them to anybody you desire. So Wednesday night, we have our pre-gateway meditation, again in the little room down the stairs. That's facilitated by Nisa Burrows, back there in the corner. And then following that in the chapel, and that's at 6:15, and it goes for about 20 minutes, roughly 30. And then at 7 o'clock, we have our gateway service in the chapel. This week, it's meditation night, and we'll have what we call a Teze service that I will lead you in, which is a mixture of some music, some readings, and some silence. So it's kind of a nice experience. We have our focus awareness meditation class. Focus awareness meditation class is continuing in the chapel at 12:30. And let's see, the Essential Earnest Homes class is starting next Thursday and next Saturday. So you can still contact Reverend Tracy and join either one of those days. And the cost for that class is $260, but there's flyers and more information on the table in the lobby. And golly, we have lots of stuff here. The fundraiser, April 15th. We have to give the caterer, yes, it is being catered, so we have to give the caterer a count. So this is your last Sunday, really, to get your tickets. If you don't have check or cash, you can go to the bookstore and use a credit card for your ticket. It's going to be so much fun. It will be like walking into Camelot. Except the music will be a little more modern. So, but it'll be lots of fun. It's dinner, dancing, hors d'oeuvres, desserts, raffles, auctions, all kinds of fun things to do. And let's see, we're still collecting warm clothes for those in Turkey. And we still collect food. We continue to collect the food for, to distribute to the families in need. So continue to bring that. I had heard that they were going to stop the warm clothing for Turkey, but, it's still cold over there, very cold. So if you have any blankets or warm coats that you would like to send over there to help them out just a little, bring them in. Anything I missed? Nope, got it all. Okay. Well, let's stand and kind of dance and sing our way out.
Take a look at the person next to you and say, God loves you and I love you too. Now feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me.